Welcome to the Blue Check Shops interview series powered by Technician Find. Listen, running a repair shop isn't about just fixing cars or trucks or managing a team. It's about balancing your entire life. If you're feeling overextended, struggling to keep employees, or wondering how to create a company culture that actually attracts and retains top talent, then this episode is for you. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce to you a great friend of mine, Eddie Lawrence. Eddie and his wife Holly own Mobile Transport Repair in beautiful Colorado Springs, Colorado. And Eddie is the founder of Life Calibration, a simple life calibration tool for overextended small business owners, shop owners, and professionals to help them gain more fulfillment, clarity, and perspective. Welcome to the show, Eddie.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate the invite. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So, most shop owners I talk to think their biggest challenges are finding good techs, getting more customers, or improving the bottom line. But in your experience, those are just the symptoms of a deeper issue. What's the real challenge shop owners are facing that they might not even realize?
Well, from my own experience, I would say burnout and overwhelm.
Mm,
We don't realize when it's happening and how bad it can get.
mm,
From my own experience, 29 years now in business, when I was younger, approximately 47 at the time, which we're talking about 10 years ago, your health can creep up on you when all your focus is on that shop. Your focus is on your technicians and getting the new technicians in there and keeping the ones you have and retaining those and keeping the front and the back working together and being an efficient, profitable shop. And then you've got the family life at home, you got work-life balance. And just by the end of the day, there is not enough time or energy left for you, the
mm.
shop owner. You're
Yeah,
you're wiped out. And so you know, in eating correctly, eating nutritiously, having the proper amount of sleep, exercise. What is that? We've all heard about it. We all know it. But what is it? When you're a shop owner, that's hard to squeeze in there, especially during growth periods of your shop and just
absolutely.
keeping it going. Literally. I mean, it's the day-to-day grind.
Absolutely. I see that all the time. And one of the things that you told me a while back is, because we've known each other for years now, is that you really can't take care of your team and your customers unless you take care of yourself first. And that's the big thing that I really took away from this. I know that you've had some challenges on the health end, and it really is what led you to create the life calibration. Can you just share a little bit about your background and what led you to create the life calibration tool and how it's impacted your life as a shop owner?
Yeah. So, it was, like I said, I was 47 years old. I had this health scare. It wasn't like a heart attack or anything like that, but it was an internal bleed, and it snuck up on me fairly quickly. And in all honesty, I found myself waking my wife up at 3:30 in the morning in 2015. It was September 2nd, and I told her, "Hey, something doesn't feel right." And we went to into the bathroom, and I just sat down on the floor in front of the bathroom cabinets and just kind of gave her a play-by-play. Holly, I'm losing my sight. I'm losing my hearing. And then next thing I know, I am out on my side, unconscious, and no pulse. And there Holly is, like, just waking up abruptly, in
Oh,
the middle of the morning. And this happened very quickly. And, I came back. I came back from that. The paramedics came in. They got me on an IV. I had started coming to right as they were showing up. So Holly and I don't know quite how long I was there without a pulse. It takes a while at that hour of the morning to have the EMT show up, and it just seemed like it was a long amount of time. But they showed up, took me to the IV, and I was in the hospital for 2 days for that. Well, when you come out of something like that, you really, really have to refocus and take a new perspective on how you're looking at your life. Me personally, I really had to kind of take stock in how I was taking care of, not taking care of myself. Changed me always coming last as far as taking care of myself and my basic needs. And I'm not talking about doing a bunch of things to where you're spending all your time on you and it becomes a selfish act. It's not. It's you allowing yourself to take care of your basic needs. The three pillars of health: nutrition, sleep, exercise. There's the other three phases of overall health: your body, mind, and spirit. And those all work together. So it really just is like, where do I even begin?
Mhm.
And that's where I started developing the life calibration. It started off very basic, but I really, it's like, where do I begin? Where do I even look? How can I look at my life all in one place when there's all these aspects? So I really had to get it out of my head and out on paper and get it out into the physical world to really have something to look at and work on.
Right, right. What I love about this is that you really looked at this from almost a mechanical perspective. You pulled it apart and you looked at each of the individual aspects. And I think this is really why life calibration is so important for shop owners, is because many of the shop owners I talk with feel overextended, constantly balancing work and family and personal time. And this is a system you put together to help you regain control over your life. And you did it in a way that kind of fits your background and what you were familiar with. And can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So, as the life calibration developed, like I said, it started off very basic with just me listing out the three main areas of life. I had my family and friends circle over here, and I had work over here, and I had personal over here. And I was really kind of, okay, well, what goes with those three areas? And instead of circles, they evolved into gears and how they mesh over time. And then I discovered what was already there is the life aspects that are associated with each of these main gears. We have all these life aspects associated with our family and our relationships. We have all these life aspects associated with work and our careers. And we have these life aspects associated with our personal. And so everything started getting laid out in the form of gears. And it really was like a personal, full blown diagnostic on me and my life and all these aspects. And that evolved into a self diagnostic. And I started asking myself these questions. And it's like, I need to look at my life in all these areas and these aspects from up here, 30,000-foot view of all of the three main areas and all the life aspects associated with these three main areas in life. And so I did that. And when it was down on paper and put into a format and a graphic, I could look at each of those. And it's like, great. Now, how do I focus and know what to focus on next? Where do I look? I can see all these from up here. And now we've got to zoom back in, but we got to know where to focus on next so that self-diagnostic, it's just a 10-question self-diagnostic, really kind of helped isolate where the neglect and the pain was in the different areas of my life.
Yeah, I love that. Sometimes you don't even know where to begin because you've got just so many things and it just feels like everything is coming down on you all at once. Eddie, with your permission, I'd really like to share my screen for a second here, and I want to show everybody the diagnostic because it's just really cool what's been done here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is the website, Life Calibration, and the diagnostic test. And these are the gears. So this is really cool how this is all laid out. The three main gears, the family and friends, work, personal. Can you just walk us through this a little bit, Eddie, and give us a tour?
Absolutely. Let's start off on the left here. Family and friends is the main gear area, and we have relationships. We have our children, and our relationship is our significant other, our spouse. We have our children. We have our home. We have quality time. We have our parents, our siblings, our friends, and community. And then under work, we have income, coworkers, inner work life, productivity, and sense of purpose. And over on the right, associated with the personal gear, we have health, which is our overall health. We have exercise, nutrition, sleep, faith and spirituality, create, learning, and our interests and hobbies. And those are the aspects associated with each main area gear there. This is the
Okay.
30,000-foot view. This is how I was able to look at everything and create some perspective and some clarity.
Fantastic. When I first went through the process, actually, I went through the process years ago before you had the gears, and it was really cool back then. I got a lot of benefit out of it. But it's really interesting because in your day to day, when you get really busy and you're doing and you're managing people and you're managing your team, and I have a team I manage, and you've got responsibilities and customers and everything else. Usually for me, what ends up happening is I just think, oh, I'm tired, but I'm not thinking, oh gosh, I'm burned out. And I'm not thinking, oh gosh, you know what it is? It's that I haven't spent time doing this lately. It's not what normally comes into my head. But when I sit down with the workbook and I go through each of these, I say, oh gosh, you know what? That's right. I used to love doing this. And I haven't done it in 6 months. We talked about that too. It's like you playing music and you say, I love playing music. And gosh, when's the last time I took out my guitar and played? And for me, it's when's the last time I played chess or when's the last time I went on a hike? And when you go through each one of these gears and which each one of these aspects, it reminds you of what's fallen out. And for me, it's not so much, oh gosh, I've got to do something in every single one of these gears. But it reminds me, you know what? There's just some things that really brought joy to my life. There's some things that really helped me recharge. There are some things in here that are important to me that I've just been giving myself to my business so much that I haven't had a chance to experience those things. Do you think that's
Right.
pretty accurate?
That's 100%. What's great about the website there that you had up on the screen is that the company that helped us put this together made the self-diagnostic test something that's result driven. So your answers and how you answer will actually give you results at the end of the test, which is really amazing that we were able to put that together that way.
Yeah.
So, you come out of the end and it does isolate and help you focus on what to focus on next. Where is that balance off from and what am I neglecting what in these areas? And it forces you to zoom in and there is some self-reflection involved. And that's the mental component to this is there's some self-reflection involved and self-reflection is tough, dirty work. But we have to break out our tools in that regard and actually use those tools and self-reflect as shop owners and really look at these areas of our life because as you mentioned earlier, when you begin to work on yourself, all else will follow. And I found that to be true. And the life calibration to me is just something I discovered. It's not something I invented or anything like that. It's just something I discovered over time and it's evolved and it's fluid and it grows. And just like life and the laws of change, things are always changing, things are always fluid in life. And so we're always looking back on this method of the life calibration. And there's always going to be these little tweaks on where we're spending our time, where we're spending our energy, how we're spending our time and energy in these areas. It's never static. It's always fluid. And
Yep.
so we want to recalibrate every 90 days because of that law of change and things are constantly changing. In all reality, that's sometimes hard to be consistent on, but even if we revisit it every 6 months, but really every 90 days is great to revisit because then you can measure your growth. And then
Mhm.
there's the aspect of after the self-diagnostic test, we have dashboards associated to each of these areas of our life. So there is a dashboard for family and friends. There's a dashboard for work. There's a dashboard for personal. And that's how we can really focus in and pinpoint these areas. Once we've gone through the self-diagnostic test, we can associate baselines on each of these areas because the way the dashboards are set up is if you picture knobs going down the side of a carbon fiber dashboard, like in your car, it's set up like that. You have gauges in the middle and you have knobs going down around the gauges. And each knob is associated to one of the life aspects. You put 1 to 10, you dial in where you believe you're at. It's objectively to where you feel you're at that given day. And then you add up your total sum of the knobs associated in that area, and that's where you find your gauge reading, which is the average of those findings.
Why don't I show that a little bit here
Yeah,
as
great.
you're just talking about that, so you can get a visual of how this is all laid out,
Yep.
beautifully laid out.
Yep. So this is the personal well-being and the personal growth dashboard. You can see where we had all the gears. We have the same life aspects associated to these knobs, just like a volume knob. We have our overall health and our exercise, nutrition, and sleep. and we set where we believe we're at in those areas. And then we total those, and we divide by four because there's four knobs, and that gives us our gauge reading. We draw in the needle on the gauge, and that's where we're at there. Same thing for personal growth. We add up, we see where we're at on creative, learning, interest, faith, and spirituality, and we get to find where we're at on the gauge there. And it gives us a good average and what's low, what's in the middle. Is there something that's high and it's way out of balance? You don't want to be a 10 on all these because that's just not realistic. The life calibration is about that work-life balance. So if you're somewhere on your speedometer and you're at between like 5 and 6, maybe 7 there on that gauge, then you're doing really well. You're balanced there. You're not leaning way off to the low end of the gauge on the speedometer or the high end of that gauge. You're at each end of those dualities.
Yeah. For me, it's fascinating because I'll take the test and then I'll go in 90 days or so later and I'll take it again. And there will be changes in what aspects now are in, up 8, 9, 10, or up 8, 9. I don't think I've ever hit a 10 on any of these. And then some of the other ones that were 6, 7, 8 are now at 3 or 4. And it's interesting how, as you go through life, you shift in different seasons and different aspects will take on different importance and different weight in your life. Sometimes I'll look at an aspect and it'll be maybe a 2, and I'll just be okay that it's 2. That's just not important to me right now in life because I'm focusing so much on these other things. And we talk all the time about work-life balance and what a misnomer that is and what a myth it is to have work-life balance because the reality is there's just seasons of your life where you focus in certain areas. If you looked at your aspects and all your dials and everything was a 10, how realistic is that really?
Yeah, it's really not. And I'm glad you brought up the work-life balance myth is really a myth from the 70s. And it was created way back then. And so when you hear the phrase work-life balance, that's what it goes back to. And it equates to back then and now, maybe dissatisfaction with work and your work and your career, what you do for a living. That's what it brings up a lot.
Yeah.
And with that, it's a tightrope walk. We do not spend equal measure of time between our work and our personal lives
No.
and our home life. It's not an equal measure of time between the two. So, as far as a measure of time goes, no, that's not the case for most people. So you're going to be heavy on the work side and lighter on the home life side, but you balance that out with the quality of the time that's spent in that home life, in that work life. And you really want to raise your awareness and become more mindful of that quality time spent both at work and at home.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, Eddie, I have to ask you this question. Do I have to talk about my feelings?
I give the life calibration to my staff every spring. We do a workshop and I do bring that up. And I start off like that. And I'm like, well, raise your hand if you want to talk about your feelings. Well, nobody? Good. Me either. Let's talk about life instead.
Yeah, I love that story because this is what a lot of people immediately go to when they think about, oh, well, I'm going to be evaluating my life, or I'm going to be doing self work, or I'm going to be doing things like this. They think that you're going to be lying back on a couch and talking about your feelings in your childhood and things like that. And you know what? I'm not bad mouthing that at all. That works wonderfully for many, many people. But for me, I really like to have it be more proactive and more hands-on in terms of my reflection. And I've done lots of different types of reflection and journaling and all that good stuff. And I think it all has value. But particularly for our industry, I think there is a bias on, hey, let's get our hands dirty. Let's get in, let's do some work, and let's do something that's concrete. And that's another one of the reasons why I really love what you put together here, Eddie, is because it is concrete and it is directly relevant to what you're going through in life. And you can experience immediate results and an immediate shift in your mindset. So let's shift gears a little bit because this is a wonderful, wonderful tool for any business owner, any shop owner, but it's also a wonderful, wonderful tool for your employees. And you already alluded a little bit to that about how you take your employees through on a regular basis, several times a year. And it's actually become part of your shop culture. And we all know this. Your business really is a reflection of you at the end of the day. It's a reflection of your thinking. Is your thinking clear? Is your thinking organized? What are your standards? If you have low standards for yourself personally, you're not going to have high standards for your business necessarily. It's a reflection of your core values. Think about your mission, vision, and values. All of these things, it flows from the top down. So let's pivot and let's talk a little bit about company culture and how it isn't just about the shop, but also about supporting employees outside of work, making sure their life works inside and outside of the shop. So, why is that crucial for retention and overall business success?
Well, it brings a whole new element to it. They're used to having classes, a break class or a diagnostic class or an after treatment systems class, which is all a must and very valuable classes and skills classes and upping their knowledge and skills in technical aspects. The life calibration is the technical life diagnostic for their life.
Mhm.
And so when they're new to the shop, it's very new to them because they haven't gone through anything like this. And here in a few weeks, because I'm getting set up and ready to do a new round of life calibration with the crew because I have new people on board. I have some new technicians, a new service advisor, and the ones who have been through this several times. I look forward to it every year. And we have a workbook we go through. And my service manager he loves the aspect that it's a tangible workbook that we can open up, look at all these graphics and these dashboards and there's worksheets associated to it to where they can write down the goals and the targets and the results they want in these different areas of their life. So it's very pen to paper and it makes sense. It's something you can download what you know you want and need to do up in your mind and your brain down onto this workbook and it keeps it all in a nice organized place in this workbook. And so, yeah, we're getting geared up to do that again because they're not used to this kind of approach. There's a deeper level of care there from me as the owner that other owners that I have worked with, the life calibration in their shops, is that it just shows that whole different level of we care about what is going on in these areas of your life, and this is how we're going to approach it. Like you said, I am not by far qualified to go any deeper than that. I have no desire to, but this is just very just easy to do. It's actionable. It gets you some self-reflection in there without going too deep.
Yep.
And we get results. A good story is Josh, my service manager. He's been with me for years. And he's been through the early formats of the life calibration up until where now it's much more developed. And he really appreciates the ability to have that tangible workbook and to work on the worksheets and put down those bullet points and those goals. He's a veteran. And there was a time earlier on in the shop days where he was really struggling with PTSD. And we went through the life calibration and he really self reflected and he knew he needed to make changes in his life. And so the life calibration was just the catalyst for that to happen for him. He does the work. Whoever's
Mhm.
doing the life calibration, they do the work. And we, as the shop owners, when we're thinking on this level, and then we share it and we get ourselves to where we've gone through the calibration, we have a good understanding of it, and we've done the work. We carry that work on down to our employees. It attracts new
Yeah.
talent when you talk about work life balance, and it's not just the schedule. It's not just your Monday through Friday and what your hours are. It's that deeper dive into it where we're actually taking time and taking stock in your life. And then it's retaining that talent. And once you have them, how do you retain that? It's that extra care that brings that culture to the shop. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. I want to mention something about that because that is exactly what I see on my end too. Because on the recruiting side and on the sourcing of candidates side, what we really look for when we're doing onboarding calls is we look for what are the benefits that you offer. What's your unique combination of benefits? And I love it when a shop does something like this because it allows us to tell a story that's very compelling and invite these rock star technicians or service advisors into a story where they can experience a transformation because the shop cares about your life inside and outside of work. Every shop we work with, they do training. Everybody does training, right? But how many can actually say, we help you with the things that are going on outside? And I know you, I know Josh, and I know the transformation he went through. And it's just amazing that this was a catalyst for all that happened. This is something that really creates almost like a bolt-on culture piece. It allows you to develop that relationship and help solve some of these problems because there was once a time when I was growing up, and probably you too, Eddie, when you just left your problems at the door, right? Nobody wanted to deal with it. It's like you handle your stuff outside, and then when you come to work, you work. But it's different. And in order to attract top talent, not only do you have to embrace that, you want to be seen as helping with that as well. So if somebody's having these problems outside, if somebody has these big issues and these big challenges, you want to be able to say, hey, look, we care about you. You're part of the family, and we're not going to let you suffer by yourself. And I love that the shops that we've taken through this process now, lots of these individuals are rediscovering old hobbies like yoga and swimming. And you've got some great stories about what some of your employees have done as a result of this, joining the gym again. I mean, things that when you really start taking a look at this, they remember all these cool things. And so now their entire life is being enhanced inside and outside the shop. And that's a great employee retention tool. You've got a couple stories about things that have happened with your employees too after going through the process.
Yes, yes. And let me touch on, I love how you said how it's a bolt-on culture piece to the business. I love that terminology. The one thing that we've identified over the years with this piece as how much culture it really does bring to the shop is really made me ask that question. What's that one thing missing from work? What's that one thing missing from the shop? And I've talked to a lot of different shop owners over the years that I've networked with, and they say, I have good pay, I have good benefits, I got a good facility. We offer all these things, but I still feel like something's missing.
Mhm.
And I asked that same question for the longest time. And it occurred to me that it's actually a very simple answer. Life is what's missing from the shop. Life is
Yep.
what's missing from work.
Yep.
And so we now refer to life calibration as a life at work system. And
Love
it
that.
helps
Yep.
fill in that missing element. And it doesn't need to be all the time, but just touching on this throughout the course of the year really helps us get dialed in because we as owners, I talk about the overwhelm and the burnout, but you know what? Our service advisors get burned out. Our managers get overwhelmed and burned out. Our technicians get overwhelmed and burned out in all their areas and what they do for the shop. Everybody experiences this to some level at some point.
Absolutely.
And so it's very helpful all across the board from the top to the bottom and everybody in between. So the stories, Josh turned his life around and really made some positive growth, getting over the PTSD. My admin manager, Tammy, she had written down on her targets and goals that she always wanted to do kickboxing. And this was years ago. And she pulled out her old book and she goes, wow, I saw that I had written down kickboxing here under this life goal. I didn't even think about that since then, but my brain went to work, she said, and I've been kickboxing. She went and found a kickboxing gym, and she actually even got as far as to training kickboxing for a
Outstanding.
while too.
Yep.
And so that's a great story there. We did a workshop, a remote Zoom workshop for a good friend of mine, Sean, at Automotive Magic in New Jersey.
Hmm.
And we did like 3 lunch and learns to get through the whole workbook for his crew. And they had a lot of great stories there. They had 2 techs that joined the gym together. Ryan is, what is Ryan's role there? He's like a personal
He's a like a operations consultant.
operations. Thank you.
Yeah.
He does so much with Sean. He does
Yeah,
amazing.
both of his shops. Yeah.
Yeah. And Ryan said he started swimming again because he loves swimming.
Hmm.
And then him and his partner started doing yoga every day. They made a commitment to do that. So big changes there. And that's all very healthy stuff for mind, body, spirit. There was a young tech in the front row when I asked, hey, did anybody isolate anything? Anybody going to make any changes? Anybody care to share? And this young technician in the front said he made the commitment to recommit to his faith. And that blew me away. So these people are doing the work. They're the ones who are isolating whatever it is. I'm not doing it for them. The life calibration is not doing it for them. It's the vehicle, it's the tool that's doing it for them, and they're doing the work.
Absolutely. One of the big things that I always ask when I'm doing an onboarding call with a shop owner is if a tech is sitting across from you in an interview and the tech tells you, hey, look, I'm talking with two other shops. Why should I go with you? What do you tell them?
Right,
And
right.
most of the shop owners I talk to, they'll fumble around with that answer. They won't have something that's really clear, that's really compelling, that really binds them or endears them to the technician. And quite frankly, that's when you end up getting ghosted. If you haven't made that connection and you haven't demonstrated to the technician why they should go with you versus the other options that they have. And this is such a natural fit for that question. Hey, look, we're doing life calibration. We're making sure that our employees' lives work inside and outside of the shop. We're making sure that there is life in work. And that's what we all want, right? We all want meaning. We do. So, Eddie, this has been amazing. This is so cool. I always get excited about when I talk about this and just so excited that you asked me to join on and contribute to this project a couple of years ago. And it's been such a fun project and working with other shops. So, if shop owners watching this right now, a GM is watching this right now, what's the first step that they should take to start improving their lives, getting out of burnout? What can they do to move forward?
It's real simple. Just go to the website lifecalibration.com and you will click on the self-diagnostic button there. You can scroll down, see what it offers. There's a video there that tells my story to greater detail and why I created the life calibration, which I got into some here. Just click on that. Just click on that and it'll take you through that result-driven self-diagnostic. And there, yep, take the test and there's a member side of this. We'd love to have some of you shop owners for members. It applies to small business too. You don't have to be a shop owner, but small business trades, definitely shop owners because that's our industry. Yeah, please do. It's free. Click on it. It's a great resource. Again, lifecalibration.com. And that's a neat thing you get there. There's also a workbook associated with this. Oh, and also the book Life Calibration is going to be released on Amazon in several weeks. It's a deeper dive into the whole philosophy and concept of the life calibration. It has some of my life experience, some of my life stories, of course, the story of why the life calibration came into being. It also has stories of some other people in here, Josh, my service manager, being one of them, where it tells that from tragedy to triumph, what they went through and how they got through the other side. Another story of a young lady who was a pilot in the Air Force, which only makes up 6% of pilots in the Air Force, and her incredible story with some of my stories in between. And then you get the life calibration frameworks and dashboards mixed in between these stories. It's a nice collection of things, and it is a much deeper dive. So that'll be out in several weeks on Amazon. Life Calibration, Escape the Burnout Trap, a proven roadmap to reignite your passion, rediscover your purpose, and redesign your life. And excited that that's coming around. That's been, well, 10 years in the making overall, but 2 years writing it. So it's been a true passion of mine to do this.
Thank you so much for your work on this, Eddie. This is amazing. And everyone, I highly recommend that you take the self-diagnostic. It'll help you gain more clarity, focus, and reignite passions for the individual aspects of your life. It's amazing. I've done it, and I continue to go through the workbook on a regular basis. So thanks for joining me, Eddie, and thank you so much for the work that you've done.
Always a pleasure, Chris. Thank you.